Hello, everyone. My name is Diana. Thank you so much for joining us on this amazing Thursday morning. It's quite cloudy here in London, but we've got a few guests from across the pond on a very, very early morning start for you, Dr. Prentice Medel. I would love to introduce all of you to our guests today, who are a mixed group, but looking to be inspired by individuals like yourself and looking for role models, possibly looking for mentors, and are just really interested in the world of fashion, beauty, and technology. But most importantly, everyone is still passionate about looking at circular models, sustainability, and how and where our world and our planet is headed. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to run you through the course of the session. We'll start with a few introductions, and then if we can keep our introductions to the very minimal, but still, please do let us know how and what you have done. And there's some such inspiring stories that I've heard already. And then we'll be going into a question answer round, which would be quite open-ended conversations. So I'll probably direct them to each of you, and then eventually at the end, we're hoping to have some rapid fire. So if you have the time. A quick introduction. I'm Diana. I am the founder of Maze London. We are a garment manufacturer for luxury designers based in London. I'm from India originally. I moved to UK 11 years ago, and I moved to the UK to work for many of the designers that we work with now as clients. So if you had asked me 10 years ago that this was a dream, I would have said probably not, because I didn't even know what I was coming to the UK for, except to study fashion, work in the industry. So I'm really, really grateful for the opportunities this country has provided for me and to be able to leave a mark. And I'm really excited about the opportunity Maze London is providing, because it's creating a platform for me to connect with like-minded individuals like yourself. So thank you for allowing me to chair this panel. Kane, I would love to start with you and possibly introducing yourself.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name's Kane. It's often mispronounced as Kanye, and ironically, before Kanye West came out, I was never called Kanye ever before in my life. And then as soon as he came out, I've never been called Kane ever since. So that's my little disclaimer, just to get it out there. My specialism is in content creating, primarily on TikTok. I started last year, October, and it's doing quite well. I'm currently on TikTok's nationwide billboard. I've amassed quite a lot of views. And then in addition to that, I work with a UK rapper who is quite successful in his own right. And he also has a fashion label. So yeah, that's me, Kane. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for that. Perhaps across the pond to a very early morning start to Dr. Prentice Medel. Thank you for joining us. I know it's 5 a.m. apparently where you are.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty earlier. So thank you so much for the invitation. And it's great to meet you, everyone, here in the panel. So I'm really looking forward to have this conversation. My story is, my background is in technology. I'm currently the program manager of fiber technologies in MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the States. And I also wear another hat, which is advisor to Closed Loop Partners, which is a hybrid investment and innovation firm dedicated to the circular economy, primarily here in the States, but also across the world and Europe and other countries. How I really started working and interacting with the fashion industry. My background is in technology, so I have a PhD in neuroscience. I was doing a postdoctoral fellowship in economics of innovation, and I identify a gap of the fashion industry with technology. It's one of the oldest industry, but if you think about the basic unit, which is textiles, textiles been here since the Egyptians, and we didn't really have a language, or we don't think about textiles about technology. So it was an interesting opportunity to bring back the world of technology in a moment. This is so many years ago, so sustainability wasn't even an important word today. People cannot speak about fashion without the word sustainability. So I started a platform called Designs, which put together fashion designers from the world with scientists in labs. It was going to be an experiment of 10 people and end up being a global community with 61 teams for 47 cities around the world. So I really got to understand this intersection humbly and the process of how you bring these two things together. So that's me.
Oh, wow. Very inspiring. I've got so many interesting ideas and questions, and I'll circle back on it after we hear from Jenny from Dressed.
Hi, lovely to be here. I can't believe I have to follow that. Bio. I work for a company called Dressed. It is a mobile gaming app. And I have to say, after years working in the fashion industry, I didn't even know I could have a career in fashion working for a mobile gaming app. But we're a styling game. It's a huge booming industry, which is wonderful to be a part of. But really our mission is to open up the incredible world of luxury, fashion and beauty to anybody, anywhere. Anybody with that connection with a phone and connection can then be part of this world, and they can get creative with all that incredible, not just the clothes, but kind of, the teams that we work with every day. So we try and open that up to everybody. We know there's so many barriers to the fashion world. Background, so economic, and so we really just want to open that up, and we are enjoying the process.
And what was your background in the fashion then before Dressed?
So pre-Dressed, immediately before that I was at Net-a-Porter. So I started out in a very traditional way. I worked at magazines such as Elle and Harper's Bazaar. Had an incredible time. It was always, back in the day, that was a very enjoyable place to be, very glamorous. Then I moved to work at Net-a-Porter, and from there I've done some consulting and then ended up at Dressed, and obviously just got more and more technological as I've gone along, from print to an online retailer to a mobile game.
I guess we're just adapting to the times, huh? So.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of you have talked about, you've touched upon sustainability in your own ways. And I would probably want to explore that from the very beginning, because we are hearing a term called greenwashing more and more in the media right now. And there are so many companies trying to perhaps sell themselves as sustainable, but they may not be sustainable. So with all of your influences from different aspects of fashion and technology, I guess, Kane, from your aspects with the realms of, the design world, and Dr. Finter's Medal as more of creating a substance, and Jennifer as probably your consumption of fashion. I would love to know what sustainability means to each of you. Kane, can we start with you, please?
Yes, of course. So coming from the background that I do, where I work with artists, often when you work with artists, you get gifted clothes. So as a result, you can't necessarily sell them on. And then also there's this kind of mystique that because you're an artist, which I don't believe in, but because you're an artist, you can't be seen or pictured in a garment more than once. So then what happens to the clothing item? Either it just sits there in your wardrobe, which already has a huge amount of clothes anyway, or, you effectively get rid of it. And ultimately what we're trying to do is get rid of that idea. So I've got something physical that I want to show you guys. This is just a normal product that was bought from a normal high street store. The artist wore it once, didn't want to wear it again. They wore it on stage. And then I said, let's upcycle this little panel. I got somebody to add down my local high street, down Peckham High Street. The material was £5. The person sewed it on for me for like £15. And then we have a whole new usable top once again that could be used all over again and being given a new lease of life. So for me, sustainability is about upcycling. It's about making sure that we make the garment brand new and usable again, rather than, chucking it away wrongly or have it just sitting there collecting dust. Give it a new lease of life. And, that way we can ensure that it's not just sat there and it's not in a landfill.
Like a reuse or repurpose, or looking at,
a repurposing of the garments, yeah.
Exciting.
that's how I work my sustainability, especially with like expensive items like with suits.
Mm-hmm.
Go in, add material, change it up, wear it again.
I mean, it must be a hard life if you are being, judged for wearing the same thing again within a span of time. But I think that concept is changing. We've got like some really industry leaders re-wearing and things on the red carpet to probably promote that sustainability. But that's a really good insight into, I guess, the influencer world. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
Well, moving on to influencers, I guess, Jennifer, with Dressed, we are probably trying to tackle that, aren't we, with online styling and converting a physical product into a digital product. But I would love to understand your concept towards sustainability, I guess your personal understanding and how Dressed is addressing that.
I like to think about sustainability more as responsibility. And I think that, taking responsibility in all the different areas for what we're putting out there, even if as a consumer, it's about what you buy and therefore what behavior you're encouraging from the companies that you're buying from. And having worked in the fashion industry for a long time, I just started to really feel my own responsibility. And even when you're working and you're a journalist and you're talking about, oh, this must have, why you have to have this new piece all the time. And it started to kind of sit with me in a not wonderful way. But I do love the industry. It's creative. It's a wonderful industry to be in. So kind of how do we work with that? And I think that's one of the amazing things about Dressed, where there's lots of different angles that we are thinking about how to promote sustainability, how we can really make a difference. So we have a kind of feature called Renew Unworn, which means that everything that you style with in the game, you can wear again. And so we're trying to kind of encourage multiple use of items so that people can really see how one piece can be used in many, many different outfits. They can obviously style before they buy something. They can see, would this fit into my wardrobe? How would I really wear this? They can see it on multiple body shapes because our avatars have a spectrum of shapes there. So they can really do that because, in retail, a lot of the problem is buying items and returning items, the footprint of that. There's a kind of, the sizing, which obviously is very hard to figure out with digital shopping, etc. So there's things that we are trying to do to address that. And I think how this business setup, it's a new business, so you can, with all the information that we have now and the changing focus in fashion, you can set yourselves up in the best possible way to look at all these things. And that's really, for me, the easiest way to make progress is at that kind of design or creation stage to think about what's going into it, the life cycle of your product, whether that's digital or a real product. So that's how we're kind of buying into it. And it really always, for me, just comes down to that responsibility. It's what I'm doing, responsible for the environment, for the people who are making the clothes, and looking at it on that level.
So mindful consumption, and I guess by reusing and repurposing and re-wearing things, you're almost altering the consumer behavior to make it acceptable to be seen in the same outfit twice in the same month, if they need it. So changing the perception. Yeah.
And we're looking at developing lots of features where, for example, you'll earn specific badges based on how often you reuse your items. So looking to really encourage that reuse. We can't quite get into redesigning, but that's definitely something I should get the team to look at. I'll call it the Kane feature.
Already there. Well, moving on to Dr. Frances Meadow, I would love to know what, you are probably as close as possible one can be to creating sustainable materials. So one, how did you actually enter and get absorbed into that world? And two, being so close to it, and I guess being an early adapter of sustainability in terms of the material world, what do you think it means in the next 5 years for us?
Yeah, I was hearing Kane and Jennifer and you as a storytelling. When we think about the word sustainability and the use of it, I wish we were talking about that in 1935 when nylon 66 was invented. I think if you go back to history, it's only few articles of somebody really complaining that that's going to be bad for the environment. But everyone was quite happy that we invented a new fiber that was going to be transparent and women were feeling awesome on the street because now they could use skirts in winter because this new material was changing the way you could feel about yourself as a woman.
Because it was ladder resistant, wasn't it? The stockings were made.
It had all
made,
those amazing
yeah.
things, right? So we went from man-made technology to now this, from natural to this man-made technologies. So to me, the way I got involved in this comes always from the materiality. And to me, sustainability is that use of identity of with you, the energy and the whole energy across the supply chain of this industry. I think sustainability has been used heavily in the environmental consequences that we see in the social consequence that the industry has. But to me, the work I'm doing is through the materiality, and I will call it the molecular pathways that we need to really understand to be. I mean, we humans are molecules. If you think about it, you are 65% oxygen atoms. And people are talking about CO2, and that's a molecule too. And we need to have a lot of more oxygen if we really want to be here in planet Earth. So I see the world through those lens. I see the world also sustainability through the investment and the funding that needs to occur here. And I think, for example, in the case of what you are doing in the digital space, we're moving from understanding the materiality to understanding the information. So this industry went from heavy manufacturing tangible things that you touch to information that now you're managing. And that's how amazingly we can create digital clothing that is kind of replacing that tangible for digital. So that's how I see this for kind of evolving as the future.
It's so interesting what you're saying. I was reading a report by, I think, Ericsson. This is pre-pandemic, of course. It was talking about consumer trends in 2019 and, you know, how we would be in like 2 years time from now, which brings us here. But it was talking about one of the biggest trends in 2019 that people were predicting was self-aware, self-eco, self-carbon footprint awareness. And it's interesting that you're talking about the carbon footprint, because one of the stats that I remember reading was 39% people would want to own an eco smartwatch, which tells them what is their daily carbon footprint output. And that led to another trend of, you know, watching how much they're traveling, like converting, you know, cars into cycling. And then the extreme version of that, which was supposed to be 5 years from then, i.e. 3 years from now, was digital holidays. So converting into, you know, AI and virtual reality, how far are we from that, you know, Jetsons world that we remember in the early 90s, where, you know, I walk into my walk-in closet and press a button and get dressed in the outfit that I decided the night before. So I guess maybe I will start that question with you, Jennifer. And how far are we from that Jetsons world?
I think certainly in mindset we're quite a long way from that, and technology, as much as we expect it to be this fast answer, my experience is that it still takes a long time to develop all the things that we need to. You know, obviously we've seen huge advances. You know, the things that we are experimenting with blow my mind on a regular basis, and you know, especially in terms of being able to, you know, digitally measure and render yourself and be able to try clothes on without being there. You know, that's the stuff that I'm experiencing and seeing the kind of huge benefit from. I think what's interesting, and particularly about this is asking more questions. So I used to just accept things. You know, somebody would have told me nylon is amazing, it's not going to allow on. I'm like, great, I'll put them on, give me some, or I'll buy some. But now I'm just starting to ask the question. So even if it comes to something like NFTs, and now hang on, let's look into this. We don't just accept anymore. Hopefully we don't accept anymore. More people are learning to ask those questions in terms of, it seems like it's a great solution, but actually, are there any downsides to that? What's the kind of balance that we need to look at and things as a whole? And I think, you know, in a lot of the work that's done in terms of other ways to look at reduction, you know, the sort of heavy use of water and chemicals and all those things, we need to make sure that in coming up with our solutions, we're still measuring impact, and we're still looking at all the elements of it. And, you know, there's so many brilliant innovations that come with digital, but, you know, something like carbon footprints, just carbon offsetting is not the answer. It's a way to mitigate, but it's not the answer. We need to look at reducing those carbon at that output. So I think there's still so much more exploration that needs to happen, although I've always wanted that Jetsons pod where I can just skip all the traffic and get from one place to another. So hopefully we'll get there someday.
One day soon. I guess, Kane, maybe moving on to you and talking about AI, and it's funny that we've just, you know, mentioned NFT, but I'll circle back on NFTs later. I actually didn't even know about TikTok until 2 years ago. To hear that you started on TikTok in October 2020, and now you have your face plastered across UK on billboards. How have you been able to use this, I guess, new platform, social media? And like my perception of TikTok was always seeing these funny dances early on in the pandemic, but you use TikTok in a very different way, where it's, in my opinion, you're an activist because you talk about important, you know, social matters, and you talk about it in a very inclusive manner. Are you worried about, I guess, AI coming in and starting to create content and taking away that personal human element from it in the near future?
No, definitely not. I think although AI is amazing, there is nothing like peer-to-peer conversation. And I think the importance of that peer-to-peer conversation is that it does drive the narrative of what happens. So traditionally, obviously, the press would set the precedents, whereas now I feel like it's all online. We're able to kind of spark and start the conversation. So I'm not afraid of AI. And yeah, I would say kind of at the moment, the quote unquote hot topic online is cultural appropriation, and kind of exploring and looking at that and how does it manifest itself in music and fashion. And I think straight away, I think fashion labels would be like, oh my gosh, you know, they're talking about this. Let's make sure we're ahead of the curve. Let's make sure we're not victims of it. If we have done in the past, is kind of make sure we've got our statement ready. So I'm not afraid of AI. I definitely think that even still it will be the peer-to-peer conversation that drives the narrative and helps to drive fashion forward and just the creative space in general.
Interesting. And I guess, Dr. Finsmiddle, I would love to know, I guess, in your realm with your, I guess, influence in technology, fashion, material, is AI playing a big role already in how things are being conceptualized or prototyped? And how far are we, in your perception, from that Jetsons world? Because if we should have been talking about sustainability in 1935, and 1935 is 70 years too late talking about sustainability, what is 70 years from now looking like for us?
So I personally feel and want that we never get to the jet zone. Even though I'm one who is working heavily in developing technologies, I think that's a wishful thinking that keep us thinking that somebody else will do what we need to do as humans. I live in a town where a company called Boston Dynamics is here. They're inventing the whole robot, so it's going to replace a lot of what we do. But I think the mindset of everyone who is developing the side of robotics, or in this case, what you're asking here is the artificial intelligence component of that, is thinking, how can we make life better for us? And I think for the creative space, we have seen that artificial intelligence has taken a role of creation. If you look in Instagram and other social media channel, you have content created by avatars from social media that they don't exist. But artificial intelligence cannot exist without the first piece of the algorithm created by a human. So whatever artificial intelligence will create in 10, 15, 20, 30 years will be inspired, created by what we humans developed. So we don't have to forget that. So it depends on us. How easy Kane can be in the beach in the Bahamas and his avatar is going to be creating content, but it was his soul and his creativity that make it happen. So I think we cannot forget about that. Picking up in what Jennifer was saying on this era of the NFTs, that's something really interesting, because it's a digital system that will give a lot of inclusivity, which is the contrast of what this industry's been doing about exclusivity, right? So I think it's opening an interesting opportunity for not only the digital experience of the user and the behavior you develop as a consumer with now a screen or something that is untouchable, but it's also an opportunity to develop a whole new world that doesn't exist, and it's we who are going to create it. It gives you new opportunities of creativity. It gives you new opportunities of behaviors. So it's a really exciting moment that we now are adapting to be for the next 100 years.
Wow. So my research about NFTs has been very recently, actually, until we had the Gucci $12 NFT shoe, which was the first way of being inclusive, as you suggested. And it made me start looking into who is buying NFTs, right? Who's the consumer and who's investing in these NFTs. And most of the NFTs are being bought by crypto wealthy people, mostly young, mostly male. So yes, it is inclusive, but it is still currently a demographic which is targeted towards a certain audience. I guess it would be interesting to know if, I know that Dressed has just sponsored or partnered with Gucci as a beauty mode, is that right?
Yeah, Gucci have been a long-time partner since we launched, actually, so they regularly come and do interactions within the app where they set dedicated challenges for kind of each new campaign, and then our players can effectively style a Gucci campaign using the elements of the campaign. So we've worked with them on the launch of Beauty Mode. It's listening to the kind of the points being made, one of the things that comes through to me is we're really talking about kind of humanity here. And as I think, obviously, even on these social media apps, there's an algorithm at play. So there's still technological control dictated by some humans and their potentially money-making ideas. But I think it's really shown us that human connection and real connection is incredibly valuable. Even if I think about my children, when I let them, they will want to watch these YouTube videos of people playing Minecraft. So they could just go and play Minecraft, but instead they would rather watch someone play it because they want some kind of connection. And I think you saw that during the pandemic as well, where, there was just a thirst for more connection because we were all cut off. So for me, that's why the sort of that human element of will never look. And I think it's so relevant for fashion, because fashion has always been about individuality, but it was so closeted. It was kind of so held back for a few. And really now what I think you see with those platforms is this kind of much more opening up and celebration of that individuality, and being able to go and find someone like Kane's views, someone like me who needs to do a lot of research about topics sometimes. Cultural appropriation, since my time in magazines, has been something I've been desperately trying to understand because I don't want to get those wrong. And so it's a huge, wonderful resource, and I appreciate it so much. And being able to find people, I love following people who are, a woman who is in her 50s and gives makeup advice for older skin, that never had a place in publishing before. So I hugely appreciate all of it. And sorry, because I've gone off track, but coming back to the piece about NFTs, I think it's, part of the reason it's kind of this targeted, who is it really for, is who's really going to appreciate it, right? There's this thing about, why do you want it? So do you want it because it's kind of, it's a limited thing and you own it and that makes you special? And obviously that is quite a connection to fashion, isn't it? Collectible items. So really, how can we make it so democratic that's there for everybody, if that's really what the point is? And, I very much want real experiences. So I'm kind of like, well, if I want a trainer, then I want to really be able to wear it, because otherwise I'm not using it to run or just to kind of have on my feet. So I personally struggle with some of that, even though we were, you know, very much working somewhere where we are, that it's virtual try on, you are able to do all that kind of virtual styling. And, you know, we've worked with some brands who obviously create purely digital clothing, and they are, you know, we had a prize where the best kind of stylist of our challenge was able to then be given that piece that they could then apply to all their images on social media, etc. So I feel quite like you, Diana, where I'm really exploring what this really means, but it feels quite a psychological thing to me, as in, where does the desire for this come from? You know, and I always question myself now, being one of the slightly older people working in fashion now, that is this just my age that I'm thinking I don't understand? So, you know, we keep a huge eye on all this stuff. And, you know, I know that some of this stuff is, you know, it's going for millions of pounds, and, you know, so it's a really interesting area, but one that I think we haven't fully understood the purpose of yet.
I guess some of the things that you've touched upon are the cliches that we hear in fashion, you know, like, as you said, like, we would never have access to how a certain age woman would wear makeup in a certain way, or without a filter of subconscious media interpretation. You know, we would see, you know, you have J.Lo who's rocking it in 50s, right? And then you have another 50-year-old woman who has a different perception. But if we've been always seeing someone like J.Lo celebrating that, then that's what the image becomes. And with NFT and with digital avatars, that inclusivity, or that barrier between the real and the in real life and digital world, is becoming quite close in a way, but also quite controlled. You know, I don't know if you read about the latest Balmain collection and how this whole collection was celebrated around Olivier's accident in October last year. And then he shared on his Instagram where how he's lived almost like this concealed life, and nobody in the world knew about what he went through for the whole year, and it was so isolating. So as a social influencer, I guess there's a reputation or an image that, you know, one has to maintain, and that can be challenging for influencers. And I guess, Kane, I know you're smiling because you know this question is going to come to you, that as an influencer, do you feel that pressure? Do you feel, because you've just shot to fame in a year's time, how did you even prepare for that?
I would say nothing prepares you for it. And I'll say once the snowball gets rolling, it rolls very, very quickly. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I know that, you know, these things can be quote unquote fickle, these kind of overnight things. So for me, it's just a matter of making sure that you enjoy it while it's here. And with me personally, it's about making sure I know that my content is what it needs to be. I feel like I'm a go-to person in regards to my specialism, in regards to activism and cultural commentary. Say that again? Yeah, purpose-driven. Yeah, exactly. And in regards to cultural commentary, and like Jennifer said, it's good to have those quote unquote opinion leaders, those people that you know you can go to, where, you know, regardless if it's a 50-year-old doing makeup, you know that she's really good at it, and you can see that she's good at it, and you know that she knows her stuff. And that's how I feel. I feel almost like I know my stuff, I've researched my stuff. Whilst opinions are great, my stuff is statistical, factual, and historical. So you can't really be combative with it. And another thing that I would say in regards to Jennifer's point, where she said, I'm going a little bit off topic, but I think what's really, really interesting now in regards to fashion and people becoming resellers and things like that, as a millennial growing up, your first job was always in retail. That was kind of like the expectation. Whereas with my cousin, who's a part of Generation Z, his first job is reselling trainers online. Which is such an interesting change, to know that he will never have to work in a store for 8 to 10 hours, standing on his feet, having those rude customers. You know, he's now primarily online. So whilst he's playing Minecraft, he's, you know, sold a pair of trainers, pops down to the post office, comes back, continues to. And that to me is just such an amazing advance and evolution. And it's not to say that it's better, but it's definitely different. And it's about realizing that their experience is going to be different to ours.
100%.
Yeah, so a little bit of a tangent, but I just really wanted to ride on Jennifer's comment in regards to her children watching someone playing Minecraft. We literally are in, we're not all the way Jetsons yet, and I don't necessarily believe that we will be, but we're definitely in a different and exciting space, and it's about embracing it.
I guess those, your cousin you mentioned would have a different experience like 10 or 12 years from, someone like, I guess from myself, where one of my first jobs was in retail, and my human connection kind of gave me some interaction with different types of human beings and how I interact in different situations. When you're doing things behind the screen or online, it's changing our human behavior, and that change we're not going to see right now. We're probably going to see in maybe 15 years from now with a different breed of human psychology and consumerism and behavior. And I'm so, as you said, I'm so lucky to have been born in the time and era that we are born, where we are seeing this change, so dramatic changes every 10, 15 years, that I can't believe that I actually use the first laptop in my teens. And most of my niece, who's 2 years old, she knows how to use an iPhone, how she would have never even lifted a pencil. So it is going to be very interesting and different. But Dr. Fintusmed, I would love to know, you are mentoring lots of young people, and there is, I know you are, am I correct in understanding that you are the founder of DScience, and where it creates collaboration between designers and scientists. So I would love to know how you are interacting with the younger generation, and what is the interaction that you are seeing, which is different from, I guess, what Kane is saying, what I'm seeing, and what Jennifer is saying, because it's a different psyche of people wanting to explore innovation.
Yeah, no, so I will speak from the latest work I've been doing, working in a university like MIT. It attracts kind of the best of the people who are going to be the new leaders of technology for the world. So MIT is a really special place because it has this mantra of man and manus, which is not only about thinking about the technology, it's also making and doing it. So that gives our students a really interesting opportunity to try things, to work with the world. And I think for the younger generation, one of the projects we're doing is they don't need to know it all. And we are making them collaborate with fashion designers from the Fashion Institute of Technology. So we're now mixing engineers and fashion designers, and people in the Fashion Institute of Technology that knows how to develop content, how to think about business, how to think in the materiality of the textile. And then with these engineers that are developing the next generation quantum computers. So when you create a mixture, they need to be aware that they are creating the future. We are living in the consequence of what our past generation created. So I always tell them that their creativity and their imagination, it's really inventing how are we going to live in the next 20, 30 years, and so on. So what they cannot forget is that they are preserving humanity, and the way we want to experience it, and life is an experience. So that's the advice I give students at this age.
Gosh, that just got me goosebumps, and that's so empowering. Just to spend that time and hear that from you, that is such, that is very empowering. And thank you for sharing that. I've struggled with this quite a bit because, of course, passionately, I'm very sustainable, and I'm a big believer of reusing. I only buy vintage or only buy recycled or reused. And working in fashion, I guess, Jennifer, you might understand that it had to be a mindset change where I had to say, I'm not buying anything new. I'm actually going to buy anything which has already been created. But here I am in this industry, running a business where I'm producing this, clothes for other designers. And I've always been in that personal dilemma versus what I'm doing. Of course, I can justify it. It's local manufacturing, less carbon footprint. We don't have high minimum. So, all of that does work. But something that I I've been noticing and quite often struggling is automation within manufacturing. Because every innovation that I've been kind of sitting on panels and discussing different manufacturing awards has always been about this new amazing, a leather substitute or this new amazing cotton substitute. But I've always wondered, manufacturing, just like the cotton, has been there since before cars were invented, before airplanes were invented, manufacturing for clothes. But there's still that progression of old school manufacturing is still there, and automation can be working only on large scale manufacturing, where the kind of artisanal work that we do will always be preserved by humans, and the skill, you'll always need the skill to replace the robots or the AI in the industry. But is there enough investment in, I guess, technology and manufacturing, not on a large scale level, not on an automation level, but on the same level as like creating a new substance? I guess, Dr. Fintusmedel?
Yeah, I can answer that. Manufacturing is always going to be a key piece on this puzzle, right? So both and it's going to, unless the next trend is we're going naked because of climate change, and I hope it doesn't happen. We need manufacturing, and we need manufacturing for our essentials. We need manufacturing for food. We need manufacturing for everything that make us be and have 24 hours a common life. The automatization for the textile industry particularly is quite a challenge, because because we created the illusion that a piece of textile is not technology. It is technology. It's chemistry. It's cutting. It's laser. It's so many things at once. The technologists of the world, and that was kind of my aha moment when I 10 years ago put them together, they didn't think that they were needed in the fashion industry. So a computer science person wasn't really designing new rendering platforms for the fashion industry. This is now adapting and kind of going faster as we go, right? So that process of how we made in this industry will be always highly influenced of what we want and that human connection. And the beautiful part about this industry, and the reason why I've been dedicating my life to this, is something that will never lose the craftsmanship of us human. And that's who we are. I mean, that differentiates us from other species in planet Earth. So that's the exciting part for me in how we going to rethink manufacturing for the next 100 years.
Touché. Thank you for sharing that. And there is hope for sure. I'm conscious of time. We are coming down to the last 5 minutes. I would love to do a rapid fire. So ask 2 questions to each of you. And it's more generally to understand how you think, what you consume. So maybe Jennifer, will start with you. Instagram or Pinterest?
Instagram.
Twitter or LinkedIn?
Or Twitter.
Okay, well done, thank you. Kane, Zooms or Team?
Zooms.
Okay, and texting or voice memos?
Voice memos.
Love a voice memo. Dr. Fintusmedel, mentoring or coaching?
Say it again?
Mentoring or coaching?
Mentoring.
Okay, and cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Really, really, really exciting conversations that we've all had. And I guess to conclude, I would probably say that despite all of us being so heavily involved in technology, what I'm hearing from 3 really strong influencers in the industry, in different industry, that the human element is the key to making our future sustainable, whether it's ethical and looking at social values, or looking at planet, or looking at environment. We as humans have a responsibility towards our future, hopefully current and hopefully for our future generations as well. But if there was a one-line suggestion or advice that you would like to give to any of our audience, what would it be? And on that note, I will probably ask Dr. Fintus-Medal to give one line of advice to our audience, and then move to Jennifer and then Kane, please.
I think that people should explore their own passion and transform that into the meaning of their life. I think we are in an era where you can do it. I mean, speaking from a neuroscientist who wants to support the fashion industry.
Thank you for sharing that. So follow your dreams and follow your passion. Okay.
So I would say that I think in your business, in your career, and also personally, to just use ethical thinking when you're making any decisions, about designing something, or should something be made. It's incredible that it could be made, but should we? And just really asking more questions all the time. Don't take things at face value. Make sure you use TikTok or any of those platforms to really find out more, and make sure that you are operating in a way that you feel comfortable with.
So be curious, challenge the status quo. Great.
Would have been a quicker way to say it. But
no, I think I like yours better. Kane?
So just in general, my life motto is without commitment, you won't start, and without consistency, you won't finish. And that's just what I kind of live my life by. So take that, post it, Twitter. And just in general, in regards to fashion, like I said prior, just upcycle, give it a new lease of life. And yeah, don't have it just sitting there collecting dust like an ornament. Clothes shouldn't be like an ornament.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. And I hope to meet you in person soon once we are allowed to meet everyone. And thank you for taking the time in your very busy schedules to share your life stories, your thoughts, and inspiring some of the young views that we have, and personally some of the people who are trying to venture into technology. I guess, Jennifer, like yourself, who are trying to make the transition from old school media into technology, and being inspired by seeing someone like Kane, who decided to commit to a cause using an existing platform, and hearing stories of how you're empowering young youth leaders at MIT, Dr. Medal. It's just really inspiring today to spend the morning with you. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.